I've got some free agency predictions for all of you guys because, again, Monday starts a crazy day. By Monday, lots will happen. And I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to do them on Monday when everything already happens and the bold predictions are now boring. So I'm going right now. I got two for you. Both of them I think are exciting. Both of them I think are bold. Both of them I think make the Steelers a lot better of a football team. We'll start with the easy one. My first bold prediction for the Pittsburgh Steelers in free agency is that they go out and they sign not one, but two wide receivers on the open market. And both of them are starter quality. I don't know who it is. My guess would be Darius Slayton and another name, but that Darius Slayton could turn into a Darius Slayton and a Chris Godwin real quick. That Darius Slayton could turn into Darius Slayton and Tyler Lockett real quick. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers might overreact this offseason and say, we don't need a number two. We need a number two and a number 2B. And at the same time, we get to open the door right now to a possible trade for George Pickens. I think the Steelers want options. I think the Steelers want the best wide receiver room possible. I really, truly believe that overreacting this offseason is a real possibility for the Steelers. And come Monday, it would not surprise me if they are the first team to sign a wide receiver. And then within 24 hours, we're getting that second Adam Schefter update or all Steelers talk update or whatever saying breaking, Steelers sign another wide receiver. And we're going, what the hell just happened? I think it's a possibility. I think two wide receivers are on the table for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now for a number of reasons. The biggest two being they're not going to take any chances. They're not looking at Roman Wilson as a surefire thing. They're not. There's no chance whether everybody has massive upside for Roman Wilson or wants to see Roman Wilson. Doesn't matter. The Steelers are not looking at him as a piece to the puzzle right now. In their eyes, he's got to prove everything to them, and he's got to earn the ability just to prove it to them because they can't take that risk. You go out and get two guys, I would not be shocked if the Steelers are opening the door for one, the possibility to move one of their own wide receivers, and two, making sure that there are no questions asked, that they have at least two guys in their roster that are new and add first team starting potential right off the bat. Because again, like last year, they found themselves looking at Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson as your 1A, 1B for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it turned out to be. They won't take that risk again. My first bold prediction is Steelers sign two wide receivers. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, my first thought whenever you started this bold prediction was, man, they're really just saying F them kids with Roman and Calvin, just saying, let's bury both of them. They're going to be 4 and 5 on the depth chart. And then you brought up the dark clouds that I think a lot of people are avoiding because it's still out in the distance. Like you see it, it's there, but it's not present danger. Let's deal with what's here. And that dark cloud is what's going to happen with George Pickens. And you've mentioned one of the angles that they could go is trading George Pickens. Now, I'm in the camp that I think the Steelers are not going to get better by doing that. But at the same time, you have to recognize the fact that they might be hesitant to give this guy cash. They might be hesitant to give this guy an extension. And if they are, how's he going to react to that? Is he going to sit out? Is he going to say, I'm not coming to camp? Is he going to demand a trade? Because there have been a lot of players that have been given opportunities to seek trades already in this offseason. There's going to be a lot of movement. Would we be surprised if George Pickens and his agent decide, let's take the route that we've seen everybody else take this offseason? So There are dark clouds out there, and it's just uncertainty because there's all these lanes that they could go with George Pickens. And I'm sure the thing that they want the most and the thing that helps the Steelers the most is they keep George. He works out. Everything works out, and you get to utilize this uber talented, top tier wide receiver for many, many years. But that uncertainty still exists. So signing two wide receivers, as you're saying, it's a bold prediction for a reason because they have, like we mentioned, they haven't done anything since Deontay Johnson to fill that spot. So filling it twice over would be surprising. But with the way things are shaken out, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. Right now, I'm feeling like Darius Slayton is a guy that is earmarked for Western Pennsylvania. it wouldn't be hard for me to kind of see the forest through the trees and say there's another name out there that could come in and realistically battle it out with Calvin Austin for reps as the third wide receiver.
I think the thing we're overlooking the most with this bold prediction and the George Pickens situation is the possibility that George is not happy that he doesn't get paid. Because we are under the assumption of the Steelers side that they probably aren't going to pay him this offseason, but we rarely address the possibility that George does not show up for training camp. Or like you said, George asked for a trade. George is looking for to go somewhere else, that George isn't willing to pay on the final year of his rookie deal. There is that possibility. And there are teams that will call, because the Seahawks GM said yesterday that there is, quote unquote, a ton of interest in DK Metcalf. I believe him, because there are so many teams out there that want a wide receiver. And there are, think of this. You've tossed the New England Patriots at me 7 times this offseason, saying they're the team to watch for any wide receiver that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going after. You're telling me if Omar Khan called whatever's Eric Wolf and said, yo, George is on the market. He's 23 years old, just turned 24. This kid's a freak. You don't have expenses on your roster. You want him? You're telling me New England isn't going to say, yeah, here's our second round pick? I think that that's a possibility. I do. Or a first next year if you call in June. I just think that it doesn't have to happen today. Doesn't have to happen tomorrow. Doesn't have to happen with the signing. But the Steelers have to think this way, and I would not be surprised if they are thinking this way and preparing themselves, because that's the worst. You want to talk worst case scenarios offseason? It's not that George Pickens is the wide receiver 1. It's that Darius Slayton is the wide receiver 1, because George doesn't show up and he doesn't want anything to do with the Pittsburgh Steelers anymore. And they're looking at Darius Slayton, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, and Devin Duvernay as their wide receivers. That is worst case scenario. Bold prediction number 2 here, sticking on the offensive side of the ball. This is a guy that, I've said you got to give him an opportunity. You got to see what he's like at his natural position. You got to try it out. But I'm also looking at it saying the Pittsburgh Steelers are very well aware of the struggles. The Pittsburgh Steelers are very well aware that they cannot take these big, splashy, crazy risks in 2025, and that the Pittsburgh Steelers need to have insurance across the board this season, because they cannot risk being a worse football team than they were a year ago. And again, the Justin Fields signing, or expected signing, is not because the Steelers are just going out to sign the youngest option available. It's because they truly believe in what this guy could bring in. If it was a nobody signing, which a lot of people assume it is, if this was a nobody signing, they'd income to $5 million and they'd go get Mason Rudolph and they'd say, whatever, dude. Daniel Jones, whatever, dude. The cheapest option available. We just need a quarterback for a year. But that's not what Justin Fields is in their eyes. They need security. They need options. My second bold prediction is that the Pittsburgh Steelers bring in another left tackle to compete with Broderick Jones. And the name that I'm eyeing right now is DJ Humphries out of Kansas City. Before that, played in Arizona, spent some time in Miami, I'm pretty sure. A guy who has dealt with injuries, but when he's healthy, he is a starter in the NFL. The thing is, this offseason, there aren't really a boatload of left tackle jobs available, and the Pittsburgh Steelers could give him an opportunity to revive his career challenging Broderick Jones, which means that Broderick's going to be the left tackle, but Broderick got benched last year, and they're going to have to bring in competition to say, you can't be handed everything in year 3. You have to earn this job. My second bold prediction is the Steelers bring in left tackle competition for Broderick Jones. And my guess, my name, this one's much less of a guess than the bold prediction I kind of feel good about. The guess on who it is just the guy that makes the most sense, is DJ Humphries. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that one's a little tougher to swallow, because we've all sat here and said Broderick needs a chance at left. You drafted him to play left. You traded up to get him to play left tackle. You wanted him to be your blind side protector, and you haven't given him an opportunity. But I don't disagree that he shouldn't just be handed the job. The 2 years of what we've seen is there's potential there, but there's also potential that this could bottom out at any minute.
Yes.
You need to protect yourself. You need to have a contingency plan, and the contingency plan of who am I thinking of? Dan Moore. I almost said
Yeah.
DJ Moore. But the contingency plan of Dan Moore just isn't working simply because Dan Moore can't play the right side. So
Yep.
I don't know. DJ Humphries has played primarily left at the NFL level, but if he can play the right, if he could potentially move over to the right, then it makes a lot more sense. I think whoever you bring in to push Broderick, I think it's going to be another pole position conversation where Broderick is going to be given the first opportunity. But if you bring somebody in that is a near starting caliber backup, like a DJ Humphries, he needs to be able to play the right side. I don't know enough about DJ Humphries to know if he can, but I think whoever you bring in, since the bold prediction is just that they're bringing somebody in to push Broderick and potentially push him out of the starting lineup if he doesn't play well, I think whoever you bring in, whoever that name is, needs to be able to play both sides of the line.
I almost feel as if Dan was like the enigma here, where it was like he was the guy who couldn't play the right side, which is wild because he played the right side in college. Who couldn't play the right side, and that just didn't make sense, whereas in a lot of veterans can, even if it's at a shorter spurt here. I don't know if DJ Humphries has ever started on the right side, and I'm not going to pull that up because my screen will start freaking out. But if he has, it's a name that makes sense. But either way, the bold prediction is not that they bring in DJ Humphries. The bold prediction is simply that there's probably competition coming for Broderick Jones, and that competition makes sense. It always makes sense in the NFL. And especially with a guy who has underperformed, you want him to be your starting left tackle, but you also have to be aware that he couldn't get it done on the right side, and maybe he can't get it done on the left side. And it's not his footwork. That's the biggest, most alarming part, is it was never, he just was all tripped up on his feet. It's his hand placement, which means that that's probably going to transition to issues on the left side. Again, I think Broderick is good enough, talented enough that he could figure it out. But if he can't, you got to have a backup plan. I feel like you got some DJ Humphries information here.
Yeah, he has started 10 games at right tackle, but they just happened to be the first 10 games of his career, and that was in 2016. So he has experience, but
it's 10 games. It's 10 games. In what, 9 years, when Broderick Jones is playing left tackle for the last 10, and then he goes and signs somewhere else, they'll have to look it up, and they'll say, well, he spent his first 2 years playing right tackle.
It's the same exact thing.
Same exact thing. If you can figure it out, look at, he's there, and you can make it work. Those are my two bold predictions heading into Monday. And man, I expect a very chaotic weekend.